I was lying in my hospital bed at Toronto General, 3 days post-surgery, when the night nurse leaned close to my ear and whispered 6 words that would change everything. "Don't take the pills she brings." I blinked up at her, my mind still foggy from the anesthesia. "Sorry, what?" But she was already moving away, her face carefully neutral as she adjusted my IV line. My ex-wife Jennifer walked in at that exact moment, carrying a small paper bag from the pharmacy downstairs. The nurse glanced at it, then at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Fear. Warning. Before I could process it, she left the room. "Tom." Jennifer set the bag on my bedside table. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone drove a truck over my hip," I said, trying to sound normal even though my heart had started pounding. "What's in the bag?" "Just some supplements. The doctor mentioned you might need extra vitamin D during recovery. I picked some up for you." She smiled. That same smile I'd seen when we first met 34 years ago at a company picnic in Mississauga. The smile I'd trusted through 32 years of marriage. The smile that had turned cold and calculating 2 years ago when she'd filed for divorce. But now all I could hear was the nurse's whisper. "My name is Thomas Morrison. I'm 67 years old, and until last week, I thought my divorce from Jennifer was the worst thing I'd have to survive. I was wrong. The hip replacement surgery had been scheduled for months. Degenerative arthritis, the doctor said. Routine procedure. I'd be back on my feet in no time. Jennifer had insisted on being my emergency contact, said it made sense since we were still sorting out legal matters. Our son David had backed her up. Mom knows your medical history, Dad. It's practical. I'd agreed because I wanted to show I could be reasonable, even after everything. After she'd blindsided me with divorce papers, after she'd taken the $400,000 settlement 2 years ago, signed the papers, and I'd thought it was finally over. Then, 6 months ago, her lawyers sent a new filing. She'd discovered hidden assets and was suing for an additional $650,000. Assets I didn't have, couldn't prove I didn't have, because you can't prove a negative. The hearing was scheduled for next month. If I died before then, the case would be moot. She'd get everything anyway, through David. Now, lying in that hospital bed, staring at the innocent-looking paper bag, I felt the first cold finger of doubt trace down my spine. "Thanks," I managed to say. "I'll take them later. Feeling a bit nauseous right now." "Sure, Tom, no problem." She sat down in the visitor's chair. "David's parking the car. We'll get you settled at the rehabilitation facility tomorrow." Not at her house. We'd at least agreed on that. A neutral rehab center where I could recover independently. After Jennifer left to find David, I lay there staring at the ceiling tiles, counting the small holes in the acoustic panels. 42 years of engineering had taught me to analyze problems methodically, to look for patterns, to never ignore warning signs. I reached for the paper bag with my good hand. Inside was a bottle of vitamin D supplements. The seal looked intact. Everything appeared normal, but something wasn't right. I pressed the call button. A different nurse arrived, younger, cheerful. "Yes, Mr. Morrison?" The nurse who was just here, the one with dark hair, about 50. "What's her name?" "Oh, that's Patricia. Patricia Chen. She's our senior nurse on this floor. Been here 20 years. Is she still on shift?" "Until 11. Is everything okay?" "Fine," I lied. "I just wanted to thank her properly. She's been very attentive." After she left, I waited and thought. Patricia Chen, 20 years of experience, senior nurse, not someone who'd make baseless accusations or risk her career on paranoia, which meant she knew something. I must have dozed off because when I opened my eyes, it was dark outside my window. The hospital had that peculiar quiet of after hours, just the distant beep of monitors and the soft squeak of shoes on linoleum. Patricia appeared in my doorway like a ghost. "Mr. Morrison." She glanced down the corridor, then stepped inside and closed the door most of the way. "I need to speak with you, and I don't have much time." "What's going on?" I struggled to sit up straighter. She moved to my bedside, her voice barely above a whisper. "Earlier today, I was in the supply room. It shares a wall with the family consultation room. I overheard your ex-wife and your son talking." My mouth went dry. "I wasn't trying to eavesdrop," she continued quickly. "But I heard your ex-wife say something about increasing the dosage, and your son responded that they had to be careful because the doctor was already asking questions." The room tilted slightly. Or maybe that was just me. Then she said, "Once he's at the facility, it'll be easier. No one watching as closely. We can speed things up." "Speed what up?" My voice came out strangled. Patricia's eyes were filled with professional concern and personal fear. "Mr. Morrison, I've been a nurse for 2 decades. I've seen family members do terrible things for inheritance, for insurance money, for freedom from obligations they don't want. I don't know exactly what they're planning, but those words, those exact words, I've heard variations of them before. You think they're trying to kill me." I said it flat, emotionless, because if I put any feeling behind it, I'd shatter. "I think you need to be very, very careful." She paused. "I checked your chart. You're on blood thinners post-surgery, blood pressure medication, pain management. If those are mixed with the wrong supplements..." She trailed off. I thought about the vitamin D bottle. "Can you test those pills?" I asked. "Not without proper authorization, and that would alert them that someone's suspicious." She paused. "But I can tell you this. Vitamin D supplements shouldn't be started without checking your current levels first. Too much can cause hypercalcemia, especially dangerous when you're on blood thinners. It can lead to kidney problems, heart arrhythmia. It could kill me." I finished her sentence. She nodded. "Or at least cause serious complications that might look like post-surgical issues, natural causes." We stared at each other in the dim hospital light. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "You could lose your job." "Because I took an oath. First, do no harm. That includes warning patients when I believe they're in danger, even if I can't prove it yet." After she left, I lay awake until dawn, my mind racing through 32 years of marriage. Jennifer at 24, laughing at my terrible jokes. Jennifer at 35, holding our newborn son, David. Jennifer at 56, handing me divorce papers across our kitchen table. The math was simple. My estate was worth approximately $2.1 million. The house in North York worth $950,000. My 401k worth $850,000. Savings and investments, $250,000. Life insurance, $50,000. Jennifer had received $400,000 in the original settlement. Now she was suing for another $650,000, claiming I'd hidden assets during the divorce. If she won, she'd get over half of everything I'd built in 42 years of work. But if I died before the hearing, she wouldn't need to win in court. David was still the beneficiary on my 401k. I'd never gotten around to changing it after the divorce. And David, I realized with growing horror, would be completely under Jennifer's influence. 3 months ago, David had come to me desperate, asking for help with debts. $380,000. Underwater mortgage, credit card debt, a failed business venture. I'd said no, not because I didn't love him, but because Jennifer had co-signed on some of those debts, and I suspected she'd engineered the whole situation. Now I wondered if that no had signed my death warrant. The next morning, Dr. Kapoor made his rounds. "Mr. Morrison, you're looking well. I think we can discharge you tomorrow afternoon." "Actually, doctor, I'd like to request something specific about my medication management. I want all my prescriptions filled by the hospital pharmacy only, with documentation of every pill, nothing from outside sources. His eyebrows rose. That's unusually specific. I'm a careful man, doctor. At my age, you can't be too careful about drug interactions. He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. I'll make a note in your chart. When Jennifer and David visited later that day, I was ready. Dad, we need to talk about the facility, David said. He looked tired, older than his 35 years. The one near Mom's place has an opening. I've already chosen one. Interrupted. Lakeshore Recovery Center. They have excellent reviews and a pharmacy partnership with Toronto General. That's across the city, Jennifer said sharply. It's my choice. I met her eyes. The social worker already processed the paperwork. Something flickered across her face. Frustration, anger, fear. After they left, I called my lawyer, Michael Brennan. Michael, I need you to do something for me. Review my will, my power of attorney arrangements, and my beneficiary designations. Today. Today? Tom, today, Michael. Please. There was a pause. You're scaring me. Good, because I'm scared too. The rehabilitation facility was clean, professional, and most importantly, staffed 24/7. My medication was managed by nurses who documented every single pill. I had time to think. Jennifer and David visited the first day, bringing flowers and forced smiles. They didn't visit the second day, or the third. On the fourth day, Michael called. Tom, I just had an interesting conversation with your son. He was asking about your will, specifically about what happens if you were to become mentally incapacitated. My blood ran cold. What did you tell him? The truth, that your power of attorney covers health care only. And Tom, remember we discussed changing your 401k beneficiary to a trust after the divorce? You signed those papers last month, right? I caught on immediately. Yes, Michael, I remember. It was a lie, but a useful one. If David believed the money was locked in a trust, maybe they'd back off. Tom, what's really going on? I told him everything. The nurse's warning, the overheard conversation, the vitamin D pills, the timing with the hearing, David's debts. When I finished, Michael was quiet for a long moment. Do you still have the pills? Yes, haven't taken any of them. Get them tested, privately. I know someone who runs an independent lab. If those pills are tampered with, that's evidence. I also called my old friend, James Caldwell. We'd worked together for 30 years. James, I need your honest opinion. In the past year, have I seemed confused? Forgetful? Anything that might suggest cognitive decline? Silence. Then, Tom, you're sharper than engineers half your age. Why are you asking? I told him everything. Get those pills tested, he said quietly. And Tom, be careful. If Jennifer's capable of this, there's no telling what she'll do if she realizes you're onto her. The next day, I found a private investigator, Paul Hendricks, former FBI, specialized in financial fraud and elder abuse. When I called, he didn't sound surprised. Mr. Morrison, ex-spouses speeding along their former partners' deaths for money. We see it more than you'd think. Can you help? Tell me exactly what you know. I laid it all out. First, we test those pills, he said. Second, I investigate their finances. Third, we document everything. If they're planning something, they'll make mistakes. My retainer is $5,000. If they're trying to kill me, that's a good investment in staying alive. He had a point. The pills came back from the lab 3 days later. Paul called me with the results. They're not vitamin D. I'd been expecting it, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. What are they? Digoxin. It's a heart medication. usually prescribed for atrial fibrillation. But you're not taking digoxin, are you? No. In high doses, especially combined with blood thinners, it's extremely toxic, causes heart arrhythmia, organ failure. Symptoms look exactly like a heart attack in an elderly patient, very hard to detect in a standard autopsy unless someone's specifically looking for it. How would they even get digoxin? Your ex-wife works in finance for pharmaceutical companies, correct? She'd have connections, knowledge of medications, access to information about what you're currently taking. This wasn't random, Mr. Morrison. Whoever prepared these pills knew exactly what they were doing. My hands were shaking. This is real. They really were trying to kill me. Yes, but now we have evidence. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I need to understand why. Before I decide anything, I need to know why my ex-wife wants me dead, and why my son is helping her. Paul's investigation took exactly 2 weeks. What he found was worse than I'd imagined. David hadn't told me the truth about his debts. The $380,000 he'd mentioned was just the surface. When Paul added the private loans Jennifer had taken out in David's name, the kind from lenders who don't just charge interest, they threaten violence, the real number was $847,000. They'd invested heavily in a real estate development scheme that collapsed. Jennifer had convinced David to go in with her, using his credit because hers was maxed out. The private lenders were demanding payment within 90 days. My estate, $2.1 million, would clear their debts completely and leave them comfortable. But here's what made it truly damning. Paul found emails, text messages, deleted search histories on David's laptop, undetectable poisons for elderly patients. How to induce heart attack and post-surgical recovery, digoxin overdose symptoms. One message from Jennifer to David made my blood run cold. It's not like we're really killing him. He's old anyway. He'd probably only have another 5 to 10 years max. We're just speeding up the inevitable. And think about what we can do with that money, David. We can pay off everything. Start over. Give Emma and Noah a real life. Another message, a week before my surgery. Once he's at the facility, you'll have medical power of attorney if he becomes incapacitated. We establish confusion first. The digoxin will cause symptoms, disorientation, weakness, heart palpitations. We document it, get a psych eval, and you're in control. Then we can do whatever we need to do. They hadn't just planned to kill me. They'd planned to declare me mentally incompetent first, take control of my assets, and then finish the job. My own son, my own flesh and blood. But there was one more discovery that changed everything. Mr. Morrison, Paul said carefully, I need to tell you something else. Your son called your 401k provider 2 days after your lawyer mentioned the trust. He was trying to verify if the beneficiary had actually been changed. And he found out your lawyer was bluffing. You're still listed as beneficiary. That's when the digital footprint gets frantic. Searches for digoxin intensify. Messages between Jennifer and David increase. They realized they were running out of time, so they'd accelerated the plan. The fake vitamin D pills, the facility where I'd be easier to manipulate. I felt sick. I called a meeting, neutral ground, a conference room at Michael's law office. I told Jennifer and David it was to discuss a settlement offer, one last attempt to resolve things without court. They arrived together, Jennifer in a sharp business suit, David in khakis and a button-down, refusing to meet my eyes. Michael was there, Paul was there with his laptop, James was there as my witness. Thanks for coming, I said. Please sit. Jennifer's smile was tight. Tom, if this is another lowball offer, it's not. I slid a folder across the table. Go ahead, open it. I watched Jennifer's face drain of color as she flipped through the pages, the lab report on the pills, the financial investigation showing their real debt, $847,000, the printed emails and text messages, the screenshots of search histories. David grabbed the folder, read quickly, then looked up at me with pure panic in his eyes. "Dad, don't." My voice was steady. "Don't call me that. Not right now." Jennifer recovered first. "This is illegal. Invasion of privacy. None of this would hold up in court." "Actually," Paul spoke up, "when investigating attempted murder, quite a lot of leeway is given for evidence gathering. And I'm former FBI, ma'am. I know exactly what holds up in court. This does." "Attempted murder?" Jennifer's laugh was sharp. "That's insane." "The pills were digoxin," I said quietly. "Toxic when combined with blood thinners. You researched it. The search history from your laptop proves it." David's hands were shaking. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what? Explain how you planned to poison me? Explain how you were going to make it look like post-surgical complications? Explain how you decided your own father's life was worth less than clearing your debts?" "It wasn't," Jennifer started. "It was a business investment that didn't pan out," I interrupted. "And I was going to leave everything to him anyway. So what's the difference? Is that what you were going to say, Jennifer?" Her silence was answer enough. "The difference," Michael said coldly, "is murder versus inheritance. One is a crime. The other is a legal process." Jennifer stood up. "We're leaving. Sit down." I didn't raise my voice, but something in my tone made her freeze. "We're not done," I said. "What happens next is up to you. What do you want?" David's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you going to do?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw a weak man who'd let his mother manipulate him into trying to kill his own father. "I'm going to give you a choice," I said. "Option 1. I take all of this to the police. You're both charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud. You go to prison. Your lives are destroyed. Emma and Noah grow up knowing their father tried to kill their grandfather." Jennifer's face went white. "Option 2. You both sign a full confession. That document stays with Michael. If either of you ever contacts me again, if either of you ever attempts anything like this with anyone else, it goes to the police immediately." "You can't." "I'm not finished. Jennifer, you drop the lawsuit. Immediately. You get nothing beyond the original $400,000. David, you surrender all rights to my estate. Everything goes to a trust for Emma and Noah, managed by an independent trustee. You'll both undergo mandatory therapy for 2 years. You'll sell your house, use the proceeds to pay down your debts. You'll get real jobs and live within your means." "That's insane," Jennifer said. "That's the deal. Prison or redemption. You have 5 minutes to decide." The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. David looked at Jennifer. Jennifer looked at the folder, the evidence in her own words. "Fine," she said finally. "We'll sign." "Jennifer," David started. "We'll sign," she repeated. "We don't have a choice." Over the next 6 weeks, I watched from a distance as they dismantled the life they'd built on debt and lies. The house sold. Jennifer moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Scarborough. David got a job as a bookkeeper at a small accounting firm. I never spoke to either of them again. David tried. Emails. Letters. I deleted them all without reading. But the first year was the hardest. Not because of what they'd done. I'd processed that, accepted it. But because of the phantom pain. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to call David about a Maple Leafs game. I'd see a father and son at the grocery store and feel a physical ache in my chest, worse than the hip surgery ever was. Grief for a living person is a special kind of torture. He's still out there, still breathing, still my son genetically. But the David I'd loved, the boy who'd built Lego spaceships with me, who'd cried at his university graduation and said, "Thanks for believing in me, Dad," that person was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Helena Tam, a specialist in family trauma. "You're mourning 2 people," she told me in our 5th session. "The son you had and the son you thought you had. Both losses are real. How do I stop? I asked. How do I stop wanting to forgive him? Maybe you don't stop wanting it. Maybe you just accept that some relationships can't be salvaged, even when love is still there. That conversation changed something in me. I realized I could love the memory of my son while protecting myself from the reality of him. They weren't contradictory. I still sent birthday cards to Emma and Noah. Never heard back. Jennifer probably threw them away, but I needed them to know that their grandfather didn't abandon them. Their parents' choices did that. 18 months after the hospital, I walked into a support group meeting at the North York Community Center and saw a woman arguing with the coffee machine. "Goddamn thing took my $2, she muttered, kicking it lightly. "Try hitting the side," I suggested. "Left panel, about halfway up." She did. Coffee poured out. She looked at me with surprise. "How did you—" 30 years as an engineer. I know machines. I smiled. Plus, I've been coming here for 6 months. That machine and I have history. Her name was Linda Morrison. No relation, though we joked later that the shared last name was fate. She was 63, sharp-eyed, with gray hair she didn't bother dyeing, and a directness I immediately appreciated. Her story came out slowly over weeks of post-meeting coffees. Her son had forged checks, $95,000 over 8 months. By the time she caught him, he'd already spent it on cryptocurrency that crashed. "The worst part?" she said one evening. "I kept making excuses for him. He didn't mean it. He's going through a hard time. He's still my son." "I know," I said quietly, and I told her about David, about the pills, about the emails that haunted me. "He's old anyway." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Do you think we're broken? Because we can't forgive them?" "I think we're protecting ourselves. There's a difference." That conversation was 6 months before I proposed. 6 months of learning to trust again, not blindly, but carefully, with prenups and separate accounts and total transparency. One evening, Linda said casually, "I'm thinking of lending my daughter $50,000 for her business. What do you think?" I saw the test immediately. "I think you should have a lawyer draft a proper loan agreement, family or not, maybe especially because it's family." She smiled. "That's the right answer." "Was that a test?" "Everything's a test when you've been burned before," she said. "You passed." The night I proposed, Linda looked at the ring and said, "My first husband, I never questioned anything, signed whatever he put in front of me. That's not love, that's naivete." "So what's this?" I asked. She smiled. "This is love with eyes wide open, the only kind worth having." We got married in a small ceremony at City Hall. James was my best man. Patricia was there. Michael. A few friends from the support group. David wasn't invited. Neither was Jennifer. Linda and I started a nonprofit together, Second Chances Coalition. We help seniors who've been victimized by financial abuse, connect them with lawyers and investigators and support groups. I changed my will. Everything to a trust for Emma and Noah. They'd get access at 25, after college, after they'd hopefully learned to be better than their parents. The trust included one provision that Michael questioned. "You're requiring them to meet with you once a year, starting at age 16, to hear the full story. Tom, are you sure? That's heavy." "I'm sure," I said. "They deserve to know the truth, not David's version, not Jennifer's excuses, the real story." About a year after everything, Michael called me. "Tom, I need to tell you about David's latest email. Not because I think you should respond, you shouldn't. But I think you should know what it says." I almost hung up, but something in Michael's voice stopped me. He wrote, "Dad, I know you'll never read this. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I just need you to know that every day I wake up and realize I tried to kill the only person who ever believed in me. Mom says we were just trying to survive. But I know what we were. I know what I am. I'm sorry. I'll be sorry every day for the rest of my life. I love you. I know that doesn't matter anymore. Michael paused. I'm not telling you this to change your mind. I'm telling you because even monsters sometimes see what they've become. I thought you should know that he does. I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, "Thank you for telling me. But it doesn't change anything." "I know," Michael said. "I didn't think it would." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony overlooking the lake and let myself feel something I hadn't allowed before. Sadness for David. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just sadness that a person I'd loved had destroyed himself so completely. Then I called Linda and asked if she wanted to go for a walk. Some wounds don't heal. You just learn to carry them. Emma was 14 when it happened. 5 years later, at 19, she requested a meeting herself. The trust required meetings at 16, 19, and 22 before full access at 25. She arrived early at the coffee shop with Michael beside her as her advocate, not to protect her from me, but to help her process what she was about to hear. I told her everything, showed her the lab report, the emails, the confession. When I finished, she was crying. "Did they really? Was my dad really going to?" "Yes," I said gently. "I'm sorry. I know this changes how you see them. I always knew Mom was controlling. But Dad, I thought he was different." "So did I said. "That's the hardest part." She looked at me with her father's eyes, David's eyes. And for a moment, I saw the grandchild I'd never really known. "Why are you still giving us money? After what they did?" "Because you're not them. You're 19. You're in university. You have a chance to be different. That's all anyone gets, a chance." She nodded slowly. "I'm majoring in social work. I want to help families before they break like ours did." That surprised me. "That's good, Emma. I can't fix what Dad and Grandma did, but maybe I can stop it from happening to someone else." She paused, kind of like what you're doing with your foundation. I realized then she'd been following my work, quietly, from a distance. "You're already better than them," I said. "I'm trying to be," she said, "every day." I volunteered at Lakeshore Recovery Center, the rehab facility that had kept me safe. I started a program educating elderly patients about financial fraud and elder abuse. I told my story, how a nurse's whisper saved my life, how my own ex-wife tried to kill me, how my own son helped her. Patricia Chen, the nurse who'd warned me, became a good friend. We had coffee once a week. "You know what haunts me?" she said one day. "All the times I had a feeling something was wrong but didn't speak up. All the patients I might have saved if I'd been brave enough." "You saved me," I reminded her. "I almost didn't. I almost convinced myself it was none of my business." She stirred her coffee slowly. But I kept thinking, what if he was my father? What would I want someone to do? "That's the question that matters," I said. "Every time I speak to a group of seniors, every time I see recognition in someone's eyes, that flicker of, oh God, that's happening to me, I know I'm making a difference." Last month, a woman approached me after one of my talks. She was crying. "My ex-husband's been asking me to sign a power of attorney," she said. "He's been so insistent. After hearing your story, I hired an investigator. He'd been forging my signature on checks for 6 months." "You saved my life," she said. "No, Patricia saved mine. I'm just paying it forward." Last week, I received a letter, no return address, postmarked from Scarborough. Inside was a single sentence in David's handwriting. "Thank you for letting me live." I showed it to Linda. She read it, then looked at me. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a long time. About the boy who'd built Lego spaceships. About the man who'd researched how to poison his father. About the stranger living in Scarborough who signs his letters with my son's name. No, I said finally, but I'm going to keep it. She understood. Some things you keep not because they bring you joy, but because they remind you of what you survived. I'm 72 next month. Linda's planning a party, small, just our people. Patricia will be there. Paul, Michael, James. Emma asked if she could come, said she wanted to meet the people who saved my life. Your real family, she'd called them. I'd said yes. I still have nightmares sometimes. In them, I'm in the hospital bed, and I take the pills. Jennifer smiles. David watches, and I feel my heart slow stop. Then I wake up. Linda's beside me. The lake is outside our window. My foundation has its board meeting this afternoon. I'm alive. I'm 72. I'm still here. And to anyone reading this, listen to your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. If someone warns you, listen. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. And if a nurse ever whispers a warning in your ear, for God's sake, listen to her. She might just save your life. I still have the bottle of fake vitamin D pills. Michael keeps it in his safe with the signed confession. A reminder of how close I came, of how easily trust can be weaponized. I'm Thomas Morrison. I'm 72 years old. I'm a survivor of elder abuse and attempted murder by my ex-wife and my own son. But I'm still here, still fighting, still making sure that every senior who hears my story knows they have the right to protect themselves. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one you used to trust the most. And sometimes a whispered warning from a stranger is the only thing standing between you and disaster. And that, in the end, is the best revenge possible.